ready to talk some Giants football, as you see by our blue ambiance here. Welcome aboard, Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. Don't forget, if you like what you're hearing, hit that old thumbs up like button during our video, and you give us a little kudos for the work we're doing. It's time to talk all things Giants. Today's broadcast brought to you by our friends at Box Drop Syracuse, the mattress and sofa outlet where you can save up to between 30 and 70%. How about up to 70% or 75% if you're a first responder or a teacher? They have special extra 5% discount to throw on top of the already impressive discount. Our friends at Box Drop, and we'll hear a little bit more about them in just a little bit. But let's bring him in. He's our Giants insider from Big Blue View. It's the one, the only Ed Valentine. Hello, Ed. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are you? Hey, you know what's with the fancy new intro stuff today? Wow, moving up in the world, guys.
It was for you, Ed. Me and Manchild discussed it. Let's cook something.
I don't deserve
fresh,
it. I don't deserve it. I'm not worthy. Worthy.
We should get like an Ed caricature in there, like running through the screen or something, like I was a Giants guy. You know, like the next evolution, Ed. I think we're going to take some of our insiders and insert them in a caricature-like fashion into the open. Kind of cool, you know, just running across the screen or something. You know, something crazy. Maybe a pass from Jackson Dart or something.
Do people really want to see that?
I don't know.
We'll put that up to a focus group. We'll get back to you, Ed. We'll get back to you, Ed, on that. And
I always was very nervous of being caricatured, you know, but it's okay. They did their best.
I'll start here, Ed. So, we could do a focus group and see if they want to see Ed Valentine in caricature form. If we did a focus group among Giant fans of whether or not they want to see Brian Daboll remain the head coach, what would those results be?
Overwhelmingly, kick him to the curb. Do it yesterday. Revoke his key card. Why didn't they do it a year ago? So overwhelmingly, I think it would be let Mike Kafka finish the rest of the year as head coach and then figure it out.
Always tough to cover a team, I think, Ed, that has a coach somewhat in limbo, if you want to call Daboll that. I mean, it just exacerbates every loss. It just magnifies every win, every move. Let's talk trade deadline since we're on it. I mean, today is the day for the NFL trade deadline. So the rumors out there have been that the Giants are looking to buy as much as they might be willing to maybe unload a couple of unworthy pieces. We'll get to the unloading in a moment, but would it be good for the Giants, and maybe more importantly as a distraction for Giants fans, if the Giants actually had made a move to acquire something here at the trade deadline? And if that were to be one of their moves, what position do you think they should acquire a player from?
Well, I don't think the Giants should make a move as a fan distraction, okay? But I have no problem if they make a move to go out and acquire a wide receiver, okay? For the simple reason that this is about Jackson Dart, okay? It's about Jackson Dart and his development and what he's throwing to, and not frustrating him, not sort of slowing his development or hurting his development. They don't have Malik Neighbors. Darius Slayton's not a reliable number 2. Wan'Dale Robinson is terrific, but he's limited by the fact that he's 5'8", 185 pounds, and he has really short arms. There's certain things they just can't ask him to do. Ray McLeod is not going to be a huge upgrade. Jalen Hyatt, they've already given up on. Gunnar Olszewski had a nice catch on Sunday, but he's a special teams guy. People keep saying, Olszewski was great in the preseason. Yeah, but Olszewski's been in the league for 7 years now, and I think the catch he made on Sunday was the 16th of his career. Okay? That's not a guy you're going to throw 8 to 10 passes a game to. The way I look at it, to be fair to Jackson Dart, to help Jackson Dart, if they could get a guy who could be like a 1B to Malik Neighbors, or a guy that would be a good 2, and a guy that could help him this year, if they could get that guy, then I'm okay with giving up some draft assets, for a guy that's going to be there long term, not a rental, not because you're not making a playoff push here. You're not making a push, for a title. If you can get a guy that can be there for a few years, then I think you do that. And I would have no problem with it.
In terms of assets, is there anything off limits? Is there anything in the cupboard that you're like, oh, well, that I wouldn't? Depending if the player is right, would the price be right, Ed Valentine?
Well, you're not giving up a first round pick. Okay.
Okay.
You're not doing that. You just can't. Not when you've been 2-7, 3 years in a row. You can't give up a first round pick. The problem that the Giants have, for example, in trying to go out and get Jalen Waddle from the Miami Dolphins or Chris Olave from the New Orleans Saints, the big name wide receivers who might be available. The problem that they have is they have a first round pick and a second round pick in the upcoming draft. But after the Jackson Dart trade, they don't have a third round pick. So if you're Joe Schoen and you're the GM of a team that's 2-7 and headed for a high pick, can you trade your second round pick and go into the 2026 draft with no picks on day 2? Can you do that? Can you get Jalen Waddle for a 2027 second round pick? I don't know. Maybe, but I have my doubts. So Joe's difficulty is that it's going to be really difficult for him to part with that second round pick here in the upcoming draft, I think.
Ed, let's talk about the other side of it. So the Giants do have certainly some expendable parts. We keep hearing about Jalen Wyatt and Evan Neal. These are guys that we have talked about for years, me and you, about their ability to get on the field, stay on the field. It just hasn't happened. Are they worth anything? And is there anybody else on the Giants roster that the Giants would jettison off and do the reverse, actually acquire some assets and maybe some assets that would actually make sense? Give me your thoughts on whether they have anything acquirable at this point that the Giants could give up on.
Well, the only one you haven't really mentioned, I think, is Russell Wilson. Is there a team out there that thinks Russell Wilson can help them down the stretch? Is there a team that'll give up a 6th round pick for Russ? And I don't know that there is one. Maybe as a backup. I don't know. But I think if someone would offer the Giants something for Russ, I think they would do it. You've still got Jameis Winston sitting there. Jameis is probably going to be the backup next year as well. If you can get something for Wilson at this point, you do it. In terms of Evan Neal, look, every team in the NFL is probably looking for, or just about every team would take more offensive line depth if they could get it. If there's a team out there that thinks they can make something out of Evan Neal, if there's a team out there that's willing to give up a 6th or a 7th round pick and see if they can resurrect Evan Neal, again, you do that because he's a spare part that you, rightly or wrongly, don't want to use. Okay, they clearly do not want to use Evan Neal. He was active on Sunday for the first time, and he wasn't active because of anything that he did well. He was active simply because they didn't have enough healthy bodies to keep him inactive. Okay, that's the only reason he got a uniform on Sunday. They didn't have enough healthy bodies to keep him inactive.
That's so sad. And I think one of the reasons you think maybe somebody would take a flyer on him, even as you said, for a 6th or a 7th round pick, is just simply because this is a guy that was a top 10 draft pick just a few years ago. I mean, and no matter what you think about what Evan Neal is now, a lot of people will pin hope on that idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think about Jalen Hyatt too. We talked about the lack of the draft pick, in the upcoming draft. Could you package Jalen Hyatt with a lower round draft pick, or with a 2027 draft pick to go get a wide receiver? Could you do that? I don't know. But I think that would be on the table. I think the Giants would do it if they could.
You sense the Giants are active today, Ed? I mean, today's the day. It's either going to happen today or it's not going to happen at all, and we're probably just going to see these guys inevitably released. So if you can get something, you might as well take it.
I tend to think that it's going to be, if anything, it's going to be more subtracting and adding some late round draft capital. I think they would like to make a move, but you keep hearing that the Dolphins aren't sure they want to trade Jalen Waddle, and they probably want the sun and the moon and everything in between, to get him. And the Saints aren't sure they want to trade Chris Olave. And again, they probably want the galaxy for the guy. So it's tough to do. But so I'm guessing if they do anything, it's going to be more about subtracting and moving to the future.
We have heard about rumors. They seem to have kind of quieted down, especially after he addressed them personally. But Kayvon Thibodeau, is there any chance that the Giants could make a big move there and consider moving Thibodeau? My understanding from the rumors out there is that the Giants were looking for a first rounder for Thibodeau. It doesn't sound like he could command that at this particular point.
I don't think he could, and I don't expect the Giants to move Kayvon, especially if Joe Schoen continues to be as stubborn as he's been at other times when it comes to negotiations. Joe tends to not negotiate. Okay. Joe tends to put his price out there. And if you're willing to meet it, he'll talk to you. If you're not willing to meet it, you can go fish. So that's not really a negotiating style. That is, here's my price, and we're not talking about it if you don't meet it.
All right. I want to ask you a question when we return we've talked about Brian Daboll, but is this a 2-for-1 situation or a 2-for-2 situation, I guess, if the Giants do make a move? We're going to talk about that. The GM of the Giants, is his job potentially on the line come the end of this season? All right. First, a word from our friends, Box Drop Syracuse.
Considering that we sleep nearly 1/3 of our lives, buying the right mattress is essential. At Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofa Outlet, you'll get a unique experience, one that saves you 30 to 70% off retail prices on top-of-the-line mattresses like Sapphire Sleep. At Box Drop, you'll schedule a mattress fitting appointment and get one-on-one service directly with Paul, the owner. No middleman. Family-owned, huge savings, no-pressure sales designed to save you time and money. And now Box Drop Syracuse has sectional sofas and love seats as well, with prices designed to fit your budget. Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofas. Set up your appointment today at boxdropsyracuse.com.
All right, we are back. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital at MC Show Digital on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Do that right now. You can win yourself a $400 valued golf club. It is a driver, a Cleveland Highbore XL, still on the market. We're going to try and ship that thing off sooner rather than later. Maybe a great Christmas gift. So corral up a few friends, click that subscribe button, and you can get yourself a few chances to win that golf club. Talking with Ed Valentine, Big Blue View, our Giants insider. And Ed, I teased it before the break, so let's pick it up there. We talked a little bit about Brian Daboll, and I want to talk about the piece that you wrote about potential replacements. But before we get to that, let me talk to you about the GM, Joe Schoen. So you mentioned he's a stubborn negotiator. I have mentioned in the past, I think he's actually been a fairly good drafter of personnel. He's had a couple of flops, but generally speaking, he's drafted pretty well, top to bottom of the draft, in my opinion. Is Joe Schoen's job on the line as vitally as Brian Daboll's is based on wins and losses for this season for the New York Football Giants?
Oh, that's an interesting one. And I get killed at Big Blue View from people who think that they should sweep everybody out and start over again, because I say this all the time. I think Brian Daboll is in more jeopardy than Joe Schoen, because firing the head coach brings a whole set of, you got to bring in a new coaching staff. You've got to do all of that. firing the general manager brings in a whole different level of change where you are basically, you're not only changing the coaching staff, you're changing the front office, you're changing the scouting staff, you're changing everything about the way that you do business. And I think, look, I'm well aware of the fact, and I will probably do pros and cons of keeping versus firing Joe Schoen at some point here down the road. But I'm well aware of the fact that if you want to build a case to move on from Joe Schoen, there is plenty of evidence there for you to put in the get rid of Joe Schoen column. There's plenty of it. But as you said, GMs, they make mistakes. They miss on draft picks. Not every free agent signing pans out. Not every trade works out the way that you intend it to work out. But, you know, the body of work, like I said, you look at the body of work, and as I said, you can make a case. It just depends on how much change the Giants organization wants to tolerate. And I just don't know if they want to blow the whole thing up and start, you know, from the ground up again, especially with John Mara not being healthy. I just don't know how much change he's going to be willing to take at this point. So I think Joe is on steadier ground than Brian Daboll. That doesn't mean I'll be shocked if we get to the end of the season and they both get shown the door.
If Daboll gets tossed from the ship, who is atop your dream wish list, Ed? Lurch just talked about a column he wrote talking about a lot of the potential candidates, but who is if you could say, hey, this is the perfect guy for the job, it would be who?
I want a guy who's not available right now.
All right.
If the Baltimore Ravens are silly enough at the end of this season, and we've heard whispers that maybe the relationship between the Ravens and John Harbaugh is coming to an end here. You know, relationships do that. They come to an end with, you know, and if the Ravens move on from John Harbaugh, I think the second that announcement is made, the Giants should be on the phone finding out if he's willing to come to New Jersey and more or less writing him whatever check it takes. That because for me, okay, and I wrote this in the list that I put at Big Blue View this morning, and it's not a full list and it's not a perfect list, and I get it. There is no perfect list, and John Mara is not going to tell me what coaches he would go after. But for me, the last successful coach that the Giants had was Tom Coughlin. And he was successful because he was a coach who commanded respect from everyone, who set a standard and held people's feet to the fire for that standard. And what I want in a Giants head coach is a guy who has been there and done that and set that standard and been a winner, and who walks into the room when he gets hired, who walks into the room not having to set a culture or prove himself to the players. He walks into the room with instant credibility. That's what I would like to see. Whether the Giants can get that guy, I don't know. But if they can, that's what I would like to see.
Ed, there's a name on your list that's fascinating to me, and then there's a name not on your list that I want to talk to you about. Let's start with the name on your list, and that is Lane Kiffin, the college coach who did get a cup of coffee, dare I say, in the NFL, even as a head coach, has had coordinator work in the NFL, and obviously has been very successful in recent years in college. You know, there was a time when Lane Kiffin was a brash, cocky, you know, different kind of dude. I mean, he was 37 years old when he got his head coaching job opportunity in the NFL. That is awful young. I know that we have had guys like McVay and others who have been successful at a young age, but that is awful young. And I think particularly with the ego, he's now 50 and much more of kind of a grizzled veteran. And while I probably wouldn't have thought of him 5 years ago, I don't disagree that he deserves some serious consideration. He's good with offenses, and it seems like he's very good with quarterbacks, and he is a culture setter. So give me your thoughts about why you put Lane Kiffin on that list and why you think he fits the Giants well.
Well, first I'm gonna throw this out. He was 32, not 37.
32. Thank you.
He was 32.
It's even worse.
Okay. And I actually looked at this the other day. If you look at the 4 head coaching stops he's had in college since being fired by the Raiders, at each one of those stops, his winning percentage has gone up. Okay. At Ole Miss, I think his winning percentage now is like 732, something like that. He's not, as you said, there's baggage, all right? There's baggage because of his past, but he's not that same guy that he was at 32, 33, 35. And like I said, the success rate, the arc of his career continues to go up. And I look at it like he's going to be the most sought after coach on the market at the end of this season, college and NFL. Okay. If he wants the NFL, he was Jackson Dart's coach at Ole Miss. He is the one who developed Jackson Dart into a first-round draft pick quarterback. Okay. And everything for the Giants has to be about Jackson Dart at this point. So for me, if Lane Kiffin wants the NFL, you have to at least talk to him. You have to find out if he wants it. You have to find out, how he would run a defense, what he would do differently than he did, almost 20 years ago now with the Raiders. Because of the Dart connection, because of his success, because he has an NFL pedigree, I think he has to be on the list. I don't know if he's the best candidate for the job, but he would most definitely be a guy, I would pick up the phone and say, are you willing to talk about this?
All right. The guy that I want to discuss that's not on your list is an intriguing one to me. I think some people just won't put him on his list because of what happened, but you mentioned all those things, instant credibility, a culture setter, all the things, and it's like check. That guy is John Gruden. John Gruden to the Giants. Is that interesting at all? Is there too much baggage? Give me your thoughts on why John Gruden was not on your list, and could I perhaps twist your arm and convince you to put him on your list?
Oh, I thought you were going to throw the Bill Belichick name.
I thought so too, and that's where I thought he was going.
I thought you were going to throw the Bill Belichick name at me, but John Gruden is not on my list, mostly because of the baggage that he carries with him. I look at the Giants as an organization that is still a conservative organization. John Mara still wants to run it as a family business. Okay. So for the Maras, it still is a family business. Years ago, when John Mara was asked about trading for Deshaun Watson, when all the allegations against Watson came out, he shot that down, as fast as he possibly could. I simply don't think that the Giants would intentionally bring that kind of scrutiny to themselves, that they would intentionally bring the sideshow and the controversy and all of that to themselves. Okay. And for me, and this is my personal feeling about John Gruden. I get the fact that John Gruden, for years has done this cool quarterback show with all the quarterbacks in the draft class, and he sounds like he knows quarterback play and this and that and all that. But you go through John Gruden's coaching history. What John Gruden does best is run quarterbacks out of town. Okay. What John Gruden does best, every quarterback he has, he falls out of love with. Okay. And that for me would be a big red flag if you're putting John Gruden in charge of Jackson Dart. For me, it seems like every quarterback John Gruden coaches is not good enough for him, and he moves on to the next guy.
Well, BG, go ahead. Throw out your top candidate.
Well, I mean, obviously, a homecoming for Belichick would be fascinating if we were going to go dream fishing there. I like Harbaugh. I like yours, Ed Valentine. That's pretty good. I like Lurch throwing Chucky out there. I love Chucky QB grinders, and he has all his energy, and I'm an energetic guy, so I like.
I see him and Scattaboo just being absolutely nuts in that locker room, and then you throw Jackson Dart into the mix. It'd just be an influx of energy. Now, whether that equates to wins, I don't know, but it would certainly be energetic.
But yeah, I guess I'll throw the Belichick thing out there. Like, he cut his, foundations for, look through the very long Belichick history. There was some giant bones foundation that he had a lot of success with. So coming home, I know the North Carolina trip's been a little off kilter, perhaps, but hey, he's got instant credibility. He's got Super Bowls, baby.
Well, it'd be a lot better if this stuff wasn't going on in his personal life that we could talk about him. But go ahead, Ed, talk about it.
I do think that all of the stuff that's going on at North Carolina and all of that does hurt Belichick, because it does hurt his reputation as a guy who has never, ever, ever dealt with distraction, because everything about his tenure at North Carolina has been distraction. Okay. And people are entitled to have relationships with who they have relationships with, and love who you love and all of that. But everything about his tenure there has been distraction, and has been sort of anti what Belichick was always about. Okay. But when it comes to Belichick in the NFL, the issue with Belichick is he's a short-term fix, and okay, there's obviously deep connections between Belichick and the Giants, and I'm not sure right now what the status of the relationship is between Belichick and the Mara family and all of that. I'd have to do some digging into that to try to find out, but the biggest problem with Belichick is that you basically have to, if you're hiring Bill Belichick, you are blowing up your entire organization and allowing Bill Belichick to make every decision. You are basically, you're blowing up the front office. You're allowing Belichick to put his front office in place. You're allowing him to bring in all of his crony coaches that he's had forever. Okay. And you're basically, what are you going to get out of Bill Belichick? You're going to get a couple of years, 2-3 years, maybe. I don't know. But then you're back to ground. Then you're back to starting over again, or just continuing the Belichick way, with whoever he sort of handpicks to replace him from there. But so I just don't know that an NFL team, the Giants or the Falcons, weren't willing to do it. I don't know that an NFL team at this point, without having seen Bill Belichick succeed without Tom Brady, is going to want to blow up the entire organization and allow Bill Belichick to make every decision.
All right, we got a football game this weekend. Let's talk about that. The Giants going to Chicago to take on the Bears. Was an unbelievable comeback win for the Bears against the Bengals in a game that featured absolutely no defense whatsoever, but incredible offense and some incredible offensive plays, and heck, even throwing a recovered onside kick to make it interesting. Give me your thoughts, Ed, about the Bears, what the Giants are facing here, and the possibility of talking about a win next week instead of another loss.
Well, look, considering how awful the Giants defense has been, and the fact that the Chicago Bears just put 47 points on the board, there's absolutely nothing about this game that scares me. Nothing at all. Yeah. I mean, how many times can the Bears get the ball? Just multiply that by 7, and that's the possibility of how many points they could score. But What bothers me about the Giants right now, I mean, the Bears have won 5 out of 6. The Giants are going in the other direction. And the defense is abysmal. It shouldn't be abysmal because it's got the talent to be a top 10 or 12 unit in the NFL. But the defense is just abysmal. They can't defend the run. They're the same problems every single week, whether it's setting the edge or you guys not fitting the run properly or guys not tackling, or the worst part of all of that is guys not running to the football and making the extra effort to go get involved in a play. So 3 or 4 weeks ago, I looked at this game and I thought, that's a game they can win. That's a game they can win. Right now, the way that they're playing, the Bears just put up 47 points and they might do it again.
Well,
I'd be
hopefully
worried.
Jackson and Darn and company can put up 41, baby. Woohoo!
It's so funny. You can always tell, Ed, the way a team's going by listening to the post and the early week press conferences. And so I dabbled into Daboll's world to see what he was saying and what some of the players were saying. And I know you're always in that world. You're always living in that world. And it was like, we have to tackle better. We need to catch the ball, and, receivers need to make catches. It's just like,
and we need to execute. We need to execute better.
Right.
We need to have better technique.
Right.
We need to do our run fits.
When coaches start
set the
talking
edge
about things that we hear about regularly in training camp in the middle of the season, you've got problems.
So,
we aren't finishing off tackles. That's not a good place to be middle of a football season.
What makes me insane, okay, is you ask players and you ask coaches, you've been telling us for 2 months or back to last year, well, we need to set the edge. And we need to fit the run better. And we need guys to be where they're supposed to be. So you've been telling us that for 3 months. Why isn't it better?
Right.
Why is it still the same issue with the same players? And how do you fix it? And the answer that you get is, well, we just need to execute better. Well, how do you execute better? We just need to execute better.
There is no answer.
There is no answer.
Yeah, it's just the way it goes. All right, Ed. Well, we'll keep our eye on the trade deadline here. Buyers, sellers, or a little bit of both. We've got hours to go to find out what the Giants look like roster-wise come next week. And, of course, we got a football game this weekend against the Chicago Bears out there in the Windy City. And it could be very windy. I know it's windy here in the East Coast these next few days, so we'll see what the weekend looks like. But certainly it's starting to feel a little bit more like late fall and early winter, so these games could get interesting from a weather perspective. Ed Valentine, as always, appreciate your time, buddy.
Thanks, guys.